Hi guys, my son Gavin and I are going on a road trip. Going about 2 hours north of where we live. What are we going to look at, Gavin?
A boat.
A what?
A boat.
A boat? What kind of boat?
Fishing one.
A fishing boat? Yep. Yep, we're going to look at a 16-foot John boat with a 40-horse Johnson motor on it. It's got a platform out the front. It's about a 3-foot platform sticking off the front, so it's actually 16 plus the 3. We're going to use it for going fishing and on the river or some of these lakes or ponds we got around our house here and around where we live at. And then later in the season or late this fall, we'll probably use it for a little bit of duck hunting and goose hunting maybe. We get up here, maybe we'll get it out and show you guys. Otherwise, if we end up coming home with it, I'll try to do that or post some pictures on there too. We'll see what the lighting's like up here when we get there. I don't know what kind of good light we'll have to be able to get a video of it or not. But it takes us about an hour and 45 minutes what the GPS said, but I think we're coming up about an hour and about 20 minutes, I think, is what it's going to take us. But going home would be a little bit different because we're going to probably take a different route home. And if we do bring the boat home, we'll probably drive a little slower. You excited, Gavin?
Yep.
It's been a long time since you've been actually fishing, huh?
Yeah.
Trying to get back out on the water. We've fished a little from shore lately, but we used to have a boat. We had a bayliner. It was actually for pulling a tube behind, but him and his sister didn't very much like the pulling the tube on the water, and rather than ruin a good boat like that for fishing out of, just fish guts and everything else all over it, figure it's time to sell it and actually upgrade to an actual fishing boat so that we can get dirty and not have to worry about seats ripping and all that stuff. So we'll see how this goes, guys, but we'll see you here in a little bit. Alright guys, we're on the way home now. We did end up getting that boat. I didn't get a video of it when we were there, but I'll do a walk around when we get home and either put it in between this video clip or the last video clip and show you around, but it'll definitely be in the video. I kind of like it. I think it's exactly what we want. It's got a platform on the front and welded all on there they have a rope anchor on there and some light pods and stuff like that up there, but always make that into like a bow fishing platform, or be able to put the dog up there for duck hunting or goose hunting. Have a little blind up there for the dog. It's not bad. Got there, we got it started and let it warm up a little bit and showed me how to operate it and how it all works and whatnot. It doesn't need a battery, but he dropped the price on that for the battery, which he told me about that on the way up. So he had a battery charger there to start the battery, to jump start it, just to actually start it and go through it. But after the whole drive up there, I didn't realize that it's an 1 7/8" ball, which I have laying in my garage in my toolbox. But I have, so I have his hitch, which his aunt lives down closer to where we're at, so I'm gonna drop that off one day for him probably. But yeah, everything we have is 2-inch or 2 5/16. I don't have anything that has 1 7/8". So I never put the ball in a receiver and actually use it or utilize it. So, what do you think, Gavin?
I like it a lot.
You like it a lot?
Yes.
Yeah, he's already asked me, can we go fishing tomorrow? Can we go fishing tomorrow? There's a few things we got to do before we can take it out. I'll go through the wheel bearings. It is missing one cap, but it looks like it has bearing buddies on there, so that cap is just a dust cover, which we can clean that out, put a dust cover on it, but still want to go through the bearings, make sure the bearings are good on it. Go through the lights, make sure the lights all work, because I don't know if they work or not. But we'll probably go through a few things like that, and swap a battery out in it, and go from there. It's got one seat on the back bench. There's no middle bench in there. It's just a front bench and a back bench. So as we build it how we want it. We can put our seats wherever we want them or wherever we don't want them. Yeah, I kind of like it. I'm not upset or disappointed with what we got. I think it'll do exactly what we want to do. He put in a electric trim plate for it that he doesn't know if it works or not, but he threw that in because he's like, another kid that was there with him gave it to him for the boat, but he said he never got it on there. He said, I don't know if, I have no idea if it works or doesn't, so, but if you want it, you can have it. Well, if you want to put it in there, you might as well, because that'd be all right for me if I could get it to work. So in this case, I'd rather trying to lift that up by hand, I can trim that all that way, so it'd be kind of nice. So here it is. Ain't much, but it'll do what we need to do. It's got the pods back here in the back, light pods. It's got one on each side there. I don't know if I can zoom this in to get that or not. I got my battery here. I had it out running. A friend of mine came over and looked at it. So I got my battery out. The battery that was in there was dead. I put it on the charger. I think it actually will hold the charge, but we negotiated down for a bad battery, so it all worked out. All open deck here. And then on the front here, it's got the front bench, original bench right there. The cover for the motor sitting on it, of course, but yeah, and starting here, they mounted a platform up here. I don't know what its whole purpose was. Maybe it was just to mount this anchor here. It's got a winch anchor on it. I don't know if that was the purpose there or not. Let me go to the other side here. But it works out. It's got the pods in the front too, light pods. All four of them work. But they got it braced underneath here with all their wiring. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this platform on here or not. If I do decide to leave it on here, I'm going to take a piece of aluminum plate, close this in a little bit just to help protect some of them wires. They come up to the lights or the winch underneath there. But whoever put this on isn't the best welder in the world, but it will hold. And they actually, when they did that, they took either, I don't know if this is the original trailer for this boat, the original boat or not, but they actually lengthened that tongue. You can see it here. They got a piece of channel that sits over top of that, and they welded a plate across the bottom and welded it to it. And it looks like they drilled some holes and just welded them there, and then two more in the back there. Because I'm assuming the tongue was about the ball, or the hitch used to be right about here, which would be directly underneath of that. So they lengthened it out, or got another hold of another trailer and modified it to have this work. But it is a tilt trailer. But right here in the back by the steering wheel, or by the steering wheel, the seat and the tiller motor here, it's got the anchor control switch to go That's the once you back up and it locks in the down position to lock it going down. They got one here, and it also can be controlled right on the unit itself. And they'd also taken this back seat and took the flotation out of the back seat and made a cubby hole here with the door. And they got the battery tucked up underneath on that side, and the gas tank sits down on this other side here. The self-tappers they use have come out of the hinge, so I'm going to redo that. But probably take a piece of aluminum square tubing and run it across there on the inside and actually bolt it all together, or try and figure out something different for this maybe and see what I can come up with. But the motor is a Johnson 40 horse. It's a 2-stroke. He has the lower end, or lower unit was just rebuilt late last year. Hasn't even had it on the water yet. Could have it out. So we went through it, made sure it was actually going to work. After he had said that and said he hadn't had it out, made me a little nervous, but it goes into gear and goes. I haven't had it on the water yet to make sure there's no leaks or anything, but with everything being open, it'd be easy to patch anything if it is. But on that side there, I don't know if you can quite see it there, but it's got the rod holders on the side already. So I can put rod holders to hold them in there for transportation up and down the river or across the lake. And then it's got rod holders on the side here for fishing wise. It's got 3 on the sides, on both sides, and he's got 2 in the back. And they got them mounted in there. Got a nut welded in this piece of angle that they thread into, and then you can actually lock them into place by turning the wing nut, whichever way you want them to go. Then when getting ready to leave, he said he had an electric trim plate that a friend of his gave him to put on the boat since he bought the boat and was donated to the cause. Had a trim plate. It's called it's a Powertrain model, but asked me if I wanted that too, and I told him, well, if he was throwing it in and wanted it to go, I would take it. He says didn't know if it worked or not, or if it'd work with this boat and this motor, but I did test it out with this another battery I had, and it works, goes up and down there, does what it needs to do. So later on down the road I might put that on there just to make it a little easier, trim it up and getting some questionable water, be able to trim it up and go slower where you're going to miss that, so that skag will come up and over that other stuff rather than come right into the tree branches or rocks or anything else. And when he came back with that, he came back with a 15-pound trolling motor, 15-pound thrust. Probably not nearly big enough for this boat, but he said he had a few places around there that couldn't have gas motors. So he'd picked up this at a garage sale or something, but told me there's no point in him having it. So he threw it in there with it. So I'll probably just find somebody that needs it or give it away, because I really don't need it. Said it won't be big enough for this boat, but only thing that I found wrong with it so far is that, of course, now that I got this in the garage, it'd be hard to show this. Right up here by the shifter, there's a toggle switch. And that controls what they have for a choke on these. Instead of having like a butterfly choke on the carburetors, they got a solenoid right here, and it's got a little head unit on the front here, and this is your choke. So when you need it, you turn that switch on, the solenoid activates, and it actually moves a plunger inside there to realign it and have fuel, gives you extra fuel to the carburetors through other ports. And if that solenoid dumps out on you or takes a dump on you, then you can manually twist this to go up or away from in line with that, and that'll put it in manual mode basically. You manually override it. And underneath here, it's like a valve stem cap, and they put them on there to be able to put like fogging oil or carburetor cleaner and stuff in there. I'm not quite sure how they thought you were going to put that in that with the valve stem in there and everything, but I suppose there's probably some special tool you can get for that. The solenoid does click if you jump her across that switch, toggle switch there, but it doesn't sound very strong, so I don't know, it might be just bad connections with that. So I tried jumping across here underneath here, but it does click, just not very well. But that switch does not work. So I went to a local hardware store today and I picked up just a new toggle switch. I'm gonna replace that and put that on there and see if that works. If it doesn't work, then I suppose I need a new solenoid or whatever. I'm sure I can just pick up that whole piece. I've seen the rebuild kits that come up with that red piece and all that top piece there. So I'm sure you can buy the solenoid and all. And I also picked up a battery disconnect from an auto parts store. I like it for comfort more or less, so like I can disconnect it so it ain't sitting there, so if I do have something draining the battery, my battery won't be dead when I'm out fishing. If I go upriver or something and plan on being there for a while, I can disconnect that and leave it disconnected so that I don't have anything drawing the battery down just in case, and then when I'm ready to go I still have juice left to start the battery back up. So I'm going to mount that in that back bench back there somewhere, just for safety feeling more or less. It'll be alright. And I also picked up a new coupler, just a 2-inch, because as I was getting ready to hook it to the boat or hook it to the truck while he ran home and got that trim plate, I noticed that it's an 1 7/8 ball. And of course I have an 1 7/8 ball, just not with me. I have a 2-inch and a 2 5/16, because that's what every trailer I've ever had has. But this 1 7/8 ball was at home and in my toolbox. So as you can tell, I was pretty upset. I asked them if they had a local store somewhere to go buy it, and they told me there's an auto parts store in town, but they closed at like 4. Baumgart's, which is Inwood, which is another 20 minutes away, they were closed at 6, and I told them it was pretty close to 6. We pulled out a phone and looked at the time, and it was 5:59. So told them we had a little bit of an issue, but we could overcome that. Just have to figure something out. So he told me he could find one. So he went in the shop there. I met him at work, and he works at a feedlot, a cattle yard. So he walks in the shop to find one, and they didn't have one. So he's like, well, asked me where I lived at, and said something about Sergeant Bluff, which is a town north of me, a city by Sioux City. And he said, well, his aunt lives in Sergeant Bluff, and if I could drop off his receiver hitch here at his aunt's place, that he'd let me borrow it. I told him I could do that, because otherwise it was going to be a probably hour trip for me extra just to go get one and come back, find a Walmart or someplace that's going to be open past 6 o'clock, which up there's not a whole lot of big towns, so it would have been probably a little bit of a drive for me to get somewhere to get one, to have to come back to get it. So it worked out for me. So when I go to work tomorrow or day after, probably one of these 2 days, I'll drop it off at his aunt's place for him. But yeah, Gavin was pretty excited about it. He's ready to get her out. Been asking me all day. We got home and went to bed, well, and got up today. He's wanting to take her out. Told him we had a few things to go over, make sure everything ran right, and go through my extra stuff here. And of course, it's got some tiny tires on here, but on the other side there, it's missing this bearing cap. And it's got bearing buddies in them, so they're not as important as the rest of them, but definitely needed. So I got to get a new cap, which they didn't have any at Baumgart's, at local hardware store. So I got to find one, and I got to clean that other side out to be able to put that cap on. But drove home. It's about a 2-hour drive for us coming home, and they weren't warm at all, so they were pretty cool. So they're pretty good yet. They don't wobble. I had it up in the air, and they don't wobble at all. So I think we'll be all right by just cleaning them out. But like I said, I'll probably take them apart just to make sure and see what they look like, make sure everything's good. Of course, I got to go through the lights too. Lights don't work, but I think that was a ground issue on the plug. It's not grounded out with that ground wire, and they didn't make a good enough connection between the ball and the coupler here for those lights to work, or the lights might not be grounded out back here somewhere, and maybe they just rely on that wire. I haven't quite gotten that far yet. So tonight, of course, I go to work tomorrow night, so the night before I always try to stay up most of the night. Stay up most of the night so I can sleep most of the day tomorrow to be able to not be tired at work. So I'll go through this tonight and probably work on the wiring a little bit and on those trailer lights. Put that new switch in on that electric choke piece there, and I'm not sure what they call it, but put that new toggle switch in. And then mount that battery disconnect in here. That way, just for a peace of mind. That'd be my project for tonight, I suppose. But like I said, we're pretty happy with it. A few modifications here or there, but I'll be able to fish in here. There's plenty of room. I'm gonna set it up for make a blind, or find the blind and put on here, and for duck hunting and goose hunting. I might kind of like the idea of this platform up here, because I can make a separate little blind for the dog. Get the dog up here so that we have our room down there, so all of our decoys and stuff can be down in here when we're moving. Or the third guy, if you wanted to, you have somebody in the front, somebody in the back, and somebody in the middle, and have the dog up front where they can mark as they're sitting there, so that they're not trying to see out the same hole you are, and you got a hole right where they need to be at. And then you reach up here and unclip them and let them go. So I'm not sure if this platform's going to stay or not. Like I said, I'll go through this stuff and make sure we're good to have it on the water, and take it out a little bit and see if I like it or I don't. I don't want to go through the hassle of cutting it all off. It is welded on this top rail here. I don't want to have to go through all the hassle of trying to cut that all off there, and all this down here. I'll leave it on there for now and see what happens. So if I really don't like it or not happy with it, I'll take it off. But I figure better test it out, because you never know until you try. Next summer or next winter, or this winter maybe, I don't know. Probably make a new trailer. One of these next videos I'll have to show you a friend of mine's trailer. He bought a 12-foot flat bottom. Just a small little one to get in some of these small ponds we can get to for duck hunting. And he bought a mud motor for it, but he made his homemade trailer, because he bought it for $500 with the boat with no trailer. So he made his own little trailer. He picked up a set of axles, bought the steel, and welded it all together himself. It's pretty slick. He's older. He's about 80 years old, and he can get that boat on and off by himself with ease. It slides right on, slides right off, tips up, and it's got a strap winch on the front that he hooks onto it and pulls right up, and it's effortless for him. It's pretty slick. Not quite sure how we'd have to design that for this. For as long as this is, even if it was just a 16 foot, to make it like his, which is a lot better than anything you can buy. But that'll be in the works in the future, near future, farther than far, because it is a little wobbly. Where, I mean, I don't think it's structurally bad, but it does twist that tongue when it's hooked to the trailer, if it has any wiggle to it. But you get that from a tilt trailer, which this is a tilt trailer, but then you get it even worse when you lengthen that tongue out. That extra about 4 feet that they started out farther. But when we go that route, I'll get some videos on that and show you. Said his trailer's pretty slick, and I think steel was like about 30 bucks. All new steel he bought for it. Here's the axle, the lights, the coupler, and the fenders that he bought that actually cost him more money. But all in all, I still think he was under 800 bucks for everything he bought, I think is what he's telling me. I'll have to do a tour of that boat for you guys and show you that one. That's a pretty slick boat there that he's got. He's also got a 16 footer, but that's a small one that he's got for those small ponds and shallow waters. So, but, well, I'll cut this video off here, guys, but like I said, we're happy with it. It'll do what we need to do with it. And I'll give you an update as we go, as we modify a few things. I'm going to do some major changes to it. I'll probably show some of that stuff, and as I build the blind later on, I might do a series of blinds, a blind series, duck blinds and goose blind series, because I got a A-frame blind over here leaning against the wall that I put together. I'm going to mount some wheels on that, but it's hard to see it, but it's back over there leaning against the wall.